Hi everyone, this is a tutorial on how to respond to the artist BRNO DEL ZOU looking at his photo sculptures. So today we're using Photoshop to do this. We need to open a new sheet of A4 paper, so File New, drop down your preset to International Paper, just check it's A4 and OK. And I've already taken the 3 images that I'm going to be working with today, so I need to open those up. File open, File open, and File open. I've taken these photos with a plain white background behind me, and that would really help if you're able to do that. If you're not, and you have a background that's got images behind it or objects, for example, you'll have to use your magnetic lasso tool to draw around yourself and Control C and Control V to place you in a new layer without that background. I now need to turn this black and white. So I'm going to go Image, Adjustments, Black and White. OK, and I'm going to enhance the contrast as well. Image Adjustments, Brightness Contrast, use the Legacy. Now it's really important that the contrast is the same across all 3 pictures, so make a note of what number you up it to. So I'm quite happy with that there, that's 34. Click OK, and repeat with the same images. So Image, Adjustments, Black and White, Image, Adjustments, Brightness Contrast. Mine was 34. OK, oh, make sure you're using the Legacy. Click OK. And the same on the final one, Image, Adjustments, Black and White, Image, Adjustments, Brightness Contrast, use Legacy, and I'm going to type 34. So they're all exactly the same as each other. So we're now ready to start building up our image. I'm going to start with my forehead, but it's up to you which part you start with. So I'm using my rectangular marquee tool and I'm dragging a box around the area I want to use. I'm now going to press Control C and that will copy. I'm going to go back to my project sheet and Control V. That's there now, ready to be edited. I'm going to use my mouse tool at the top, or my move tool, and just drag that up there. And I'm going to make it bigger, Control T. Hold my Shift key down. It's really, really important you're holding your Shift key down, otherwise you're going to lose proportion. So make sure that Shift key is being held down when you're shrinking or enlarging the areas you've selected. I'm now going to go back to a different image and use my rectangular marquee tool to select another part of my face, and I'm going to use the eye here. Control C, go back to my project, Control V, Control T, hold my Shift key down and just make it bigger. Now we want this slightly out of proportion in terms of scale. So normally my eye wouldn't be this big in comparison to my forehead, but that's what we want. We want some bits bigger than others and some bits smaller than others. When you're happy with the placement, just press Enter on your keyboard. I'm now going to work from this sheet and use my nose. Control C, go back to your image, Control V, Control T, hold down your Shift key, drag it to the size that you want. Now I'm trying to kind of keep my facial features in the correct areas. So for instance, I haven't got the nose on top of my forehead. I'm keeping it roughly where it would be expected to be. Press Enter. Now I want to use some skin tone just as the background, just so that we haven't got any areas of white. So I'll go back to whichever image I think has the best area of skin. So I'm going to use this one and just drag a box. Control C, Control V, Control T, and pop that there. And Enter. Now obviously I've hidden my eye there, so I now need to just drag that layer to the very back. And I'm going to duplicate that layer. I'm going to use it again. So I can right click on it, duplicate layer, click OK, use my mouse or move tool, and that can just be popped there. So actually I think I'll have it a little bit lower down, about here. Go back to your images that you want to work from. I'm going to use an eye from over here now. Control C, Control V, Control T. If you don't like the layer placement, you can obviously drag this layer to an area that you would prefer, but by doing that I've actually now lost the eye over here. So I'm going to keep it where it was, but I'm going to make it maybe slightly smaller. I'm going to now add in a little bit more hair. So let's go over here. I'm going to drag this section here. Control C, go back to my project, Control V, Control T, Shift key, drag it. Now I do want this to look a bit out of proportion, so I'm going to go a lot larger here. And I'm going to use this ear now as well. Control C, Control V, Control T. Going to select my nose from this one. Control C, Control V, Control T. Control C, Control V, Control T. And you're just repeating that process, just selecting areas of the face that you want to use over and over again. And if you're not happy with the placement, just mess around with the layer. Okay, last up, I'm going to put my mouth in there. Control C, Control V, Control T. Got this little white area here, so I would like to remove that. So I need to find that layer that I placed earlier of skin, which I believe is here, and I'm just going to make that bigger by pressing Control T, holding down my Shift key, and that's just filled that area in quite nicely there. Okay, the final step now is to add something called a drop shadow. So this will give the illusion that it's a 3D sculpture. So on the top layers, so not necessarily the background, the skin layers, the top layers over here, we need to add that drop shadow to. So select your move tool and right click on the layer that you want to work with. So this is layer 2. That automatically then jumps on the layer panel onto layer 2. If you right click and select blending options, select drop shadow, and you can mess around with these. Can you see now over that square image over here, we've got this drop shadow here, and I can make that really far away or just quite subtle. Can also mess around with some of the other. And that stops the sharpness. I quite like that. I want it slightly faded, so I'm happy with that. I'm just going to take note in my head of that drop shadow setting, so 41 and 57. And I'll repeat the same with this layer here, which looks to be layer 9. Right click, blending options, drop shadow. And try and get those settings the same as before. Drop shadow, blending options. So some of the layers underneath, further underneath, you might need a slightly larger drop shadow to really get it standing out. So I'm working on the eye now, and as you can see, that's just too subtle. I don't like that. So I need to make this a lot bigger. But fade that out. Okay, same with this layer here. So right-clicking, blending options, and applying that drop shadow once again. And this is very nearly done now. If you're not happy with it, you can obviously remove areas of the face that you've placed. You can duplicate other areas, and I'll show you that in just a moment. So if, for instance, you decided actually you wanted to use this eye, for example, but facing another way, you would select the layer, so right-click on the layer. That's now active over there, and you can then press Ctrl-T, and you can flip it horizontal or vertical. So then you can then move it around if you're thinking actually that eye would look better over here, or whatever, what have you. But I'm going to just pop it back where it was, and I might make it a little bit smaller actually. Okay. So save your image when you're happy with it. Save it as a JPEG. And that's our response to the artist.